Right. So welcome to On the Menu. Today we'll be talking about goal settings. For those of you who are new to the program, we've been doing this for about 2 and some change years. It came about as an idea of a way to have a lunch and learn that's a little bit different. Back when we were in person, it was very much so centered around food puns, what's on the menu to eat, and for knowledge. Now that we are virtual, we do encourage you to make something tasty for yourself and listen along and learn. And we hope that one day soon we'll be able to provide both knowledge and food to you. But in the meantime, we are really thankful for this virtual platform and that we are able to broadcast this event virtually, not just to the people in the triangle, but beyond. So first, a little bit of housekeeping. You are all muted currently by design. We want you to stay muted. I believe there is a part where Jamie might ask you to unmute a little later, so wait for that. But if you do have questions throughout, please put those in the chat. I'll be monitoring them. Jamie will be as well. So if you have something that just pops up, please put that in, but there will be time at the end for questions too if you want to save it. To test out the chat, I would love to see, we're right smack in the middle of 2 holiday seasons right now. I would love to hear, what is your favorite holiday dish to prepare for your friends and family? Doesn't matter the holiday, but what is that food that is like your go-to? Depending on what you answer, I might ask for a recipe, but I would love to hear. Yum. Ginger cookies, that sounds delicious. Stuffing. Love that. Prime rib, yum. Mac and cheese. Ooh, rum cake. Oh, these are awesome. Make me hungry. That's what we do here On the Menu. All about food. All right, well, thanks y'all. Thanks for humoring me. So I'm going to read Jamie's bio, and before we get into it, I do want to ask y'all a poll question just to get a sense of where you are at with goal setting. So I'm going to launch that now and select how much experience you have with setting goals. After we get a good bit of participation, I will end it and share it just so everyone can see where the room is at. Awesome. Okay, let me go ahead and share these out. So at least no one is unaware of what a goal is. That's great. It's a great starting point. I think we can definitely build on this. This is awesome. So thank you again for humoring me. I love this technology. All right, so now about our session leader today. Jamie Ousterout is the founder of Stabilimenta, an operational strategy consulting firm and head of client services at the Diversity Movement. She has spent more than a decade in creative, marketing, and digital companies serving local, regional, and international clients. So I'm going to turn this over to Jamie. One quick last piece of housekeeping. I did send out an email this morning with an attachment. If y'all didn't receive that, or if you're a late sign up, I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat. It's going to show up as a PowerPoint. It's a safe document. Feel free to download it, and that'll help you throughout. And with that, tossing it to you, Jamie.
Great. Hey, everyone. Good afternoon. It's so lovely to be here with you all, and looking at the chat with all of your food made me very hungry, and I really want to try the coquito, the Puerto Rican eggnog with rum. So maybe Flynn, you can share that recipe with us. That sounds incredible. So, it's the end of the year. It's December. It's a really busy time. However, it's also a wonderful time for kind of looking back, reflecting on the last year, and making some plans for 2021. So hopefully the hustle and bustle of the holidays hasn't started yet for you all, and now is a good time to do some goal setting. And really the purpose of today is going to be interactive. As Amanda said, she sent through a PowerPoint with worksheets. So you all will get a great head start on setting goals just by joining this session today. And it was very great to see that in the poll that, some of you are experts at this already, just looking for some extra tips and tricks, or maybe a different way about thinking about goals. And some of you need some help, and that's great. And we're going to talk today around how you can set goals both personally for yourselves, because I think that's really important, but also professionally, even for your organizations. So actually next Friday, I'm going to be doing this with the diversity movement, where I'm head of client services. So super excited to be here today and joining you. And I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. So the topic of today was 5 steps, simple steps for goal setting. And so with that, we have sort of our agenda for today, which we'll walk through each of those 5 steps in detail. The first step, you all have already accomplished. The first step is scheduling time to set aside so that you can do your goal setting for the year. So check to all of you, you got that done, that's awesome, that's the first step. The second step is doing a retrospective. So thinking back on the past and then using that in order to set goals for the future. The next step, it's so funny, setting goals, right? We don't even get to the goal setting until step number 4. There's a lot that goes into the thinking behind this. So for number 3, we're going to establish a target. I'm going to explain what I mean by that as we go through this. Step number 4 is actually the goal setting. So today I'm going to be sharing my guidelines for goal setting, and then we actually have some exercises. So that's where we'll spend the bulk of today. And as Amanda said, we will be making this interactive. So I'll ask for folks to share if you want to put things in the chat, or if you want to come off mute at that time, that will be a great time to do that. We'll do that in the retrospective session too. And then the last step is really, what do we do from here? So after we have our goals, what do we do? So I'll talk about that as well. So that is our agenda for the day. I love goal setting because I really think that it's so important in order to make a plan and be able to review it on a constant basis. My dad, who's also a consultant, actually has a saying that says, if you write it down, it will get done. So I like to think about setting goals and actually writing them down as a great first step into making that happen. So again, step 1, we've already done it. We've scheduled time to set aside and think about goals. Step number 2 is retrospective. So I like to think about retrospectives because for a number of reasons. One, I am an English and history major. And so I always like to kind of think about the past. Also, if y'all have ever done that Strengths Finder test, context is my number 1 strength. So I always like to think about, what's in the past so that we can understand our future better. So to do that, I'm going to ask you all, what were your biggest successes in 2020, or what are you most proud of? And again, these can be personal or professional. And if you use that PowerPoint, you can type that in, or you can just write down on a sheet of paper. Some folks are old school, so that's perfect. And so I want you to just take a couple minutes right now, literally write down, what are you most proud of? What was your biggest success of 2020? And I know 2020 is not technically over yet, so maybe that's still to come, but we'll give everyone about a minute to do that. And then I will share mine, and if anyone else wants to share theirs, I will welcome that as well. All right. So while folks are still writing, and of course you can always go back to this after the session. We're trying to cram a lot into 1 hour, so I know we won't be able to get to all of it, and that's okay. So my biggest success of 2020 was actually the fact that I joined the diversity movement. So going into 2020, I set all my goals for the year. I had this grand plan of everything I was going to do and how I was going to grow my business, Stabilimenta, my operational consulting business. And then I ended up doing some consulting for the diversity movement. And they basically, I fell in love with the organization, and they said, we really just want, come join our team. Just come join the leadership team here. We need your operational strategy help. We need your client service help. Just come join us. And so while it wasn't planned or expected, that was absolutely my biggest success of the year. And I see that some folks are starting to share in the chat. So yes, I welcome that. Share in the chat or even come off mute if you feel welcome. But Elizabeth said that her biggest success is simply staying employed. Many colleagues were impacted due to COVID. Yeah, that's absolutely right. What a weird year this has been. Flynn said, continuing to make A's in my MBA class. That's awesome, Flynn. Congratulations. Fantastic. Miranda shared, mine was being invited to parade in the Rio Carnival 2021, dancing samba. Awesome. That sounds like a lot of fun. Does anyone else want to share their biggest success from 2020? All right. So of course, you all probably figured, what was your biggest challenge or learning moment of 2020? Again, this can be personal or professional, and you can write down more than one too. Obviously, I think everyone's going to somehow put COVID or something COVID related. Obviously, this year has been incredibly difficult and so many people have been affected. So certainly that is a challenge and learning moment. So I'll give everyone again another minute or so to think about this and write it down, and then I'll share mine and welcome folks to share theirs. Awesome. I see folks already writing in. So yeah, for me, it definitely was with COVID. I previously with Stabilimenta and still do work with a lot of small organizations and small businesses. And so a lot of folks, I did have a few that said, we need your help in reinventing ourselves during this pandemic. But I did have a lot that said, we wanted to work with you. I can't, I don't have the budget. I'm laying people off. And so that was definitely difficult. And I had to sort of decide and shift where I was going to work and who I was going to work with and the types of industries that maybe weren't as affected by COVID. So that was definitely a big learning moment for me. My other big learning moment so far this year is when I owned my own company, I did an awesome job of finally achieving work-life balance. And this year, since I've started full-time and was still kind of wrapping up stuff with consulting, it's been a challenge. So that's one I have not overcome and is actually going to be a goal for me in 2021. So I saw some folks sharing in the chat. Flynn said getting laid off on April 15th due to COVID, along with 20% of the company I was with. Yeah, that's tough. Amanda said learning how to work from home. Yes, we all have had to adapt. I used to always work from home, so that really wasn't a challenge for me, and I love working from home, but just using all the different technologies has certainly been a challenge. Elizabeth shared managing my workload, meeting commitments, making stakeholders happy. Yep. Amy said, managing both my business and my children attending school online. Yes, I have heard of so many parents who have children attending school and how difficult that can be to manage all of those things. Learning about the EIDL and PPP programs. Yes, trying to manage stress and work overload. Michael said, finding effective ways to be productive in my company's work from home environment. And yes, Amanda, absolutely. I do not have children, and I have so much respect for all of you parents on the line. Thank you for doing what you're doing during this really difficult time. So yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And that's something, I talk about personal and professional goals, but especially now, those two worlds collide so much. So when you think about goal setting, you want to think about, okay, I'm setting professional goals, or maybe even when you're setting goals for your organization, how can you be taking in mind your personal life as well? And even, especially with work I'm doing now with the diversity movement, we work with organizations to infuse diversity, equity, and inclusion into the core of doing business. So when we think about goals, how can we be more inclusive of the people that we work with and the organizations that we work with, our clients, the employees that we work with on a daily basis? So that's definitely something really, really important to keep in mind. Again, that professional and personal world is colliding so much these days. So wonderful. So you all have completed step number 2, which is the retrospective. And it's important. I think we all kind of forget, we get so busy, we're taking care of kids, we're trying to keep, the house in order, trying to run our lives. And we forget to take a pause and recognize the successes we've had and also some of the learning moments we've had. So thank you all for taking the time to do that today. The next thing I want to talk about, and is step number 3, is establishing a target. Okay, so, and we'll talk about this in a minute, your goals really should be tied to your mission as well as a target. So most of your organizations probably have a mission statement. This is a whole nother workshop that I'll have to talk to Amanda about doing at some other point about setting your mission, vision, values. I believe really strongly in that. I call them your organization anchors. So at the diversity movement, we have a longer mission statement, but our short mission statement is that we are catalysts for transformation. So we're trying to change the way that people do business and really incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion into that. My mission with Stabilimenta is to help organizations ensure that their operations match the quality of work that they are producing. What did I say you called that? I call them organization anchors, Flynn. Yes. mission, vision, values. And I have a whole blog that we'll be happy to share as well. And the reason I call it organization anchors is if you think about it, it's what keeps you grounded during these difficult times, during any times, but especially now. So what is your mission? What are you really trying to achieve within your organization? What are your key values? And if you can tie your goals back to those things, you're going to be just so much more successful. Everyone's going to be in line. So, within our values within Stabilimenta, I had a few fun ones. One is the worst thing you can do is lie. So honesty is really important with that. Another key value was get things done without the fuss. So, not making things more difficult than they need to be. And so how can you tie goals back to those mission, vision, values of your organization? And then equally important is a target. It is really what you're trying to achieve for the next year. So for businesses, this is typically going to be some sort of revenue target. Even if you're I worked with a office out of NC State, and for them, they're not earning revenue, but they still had certain goals that they were trying to achieve monetarily, certain amount of funding they were trying to get, things like that. So that can be your target. For even your personal life, it could be, I want to save X amount of money, as an example. So I want you all to now, again, you can use either the PowerPoint, there was a worksheet, or just write it down. But I want you to think about what is your revenue target for next year. And an easy statement to do that is by the end of 2021, I'm targeting a revenue of what? So I'll give everyone a moment to do that. I will not ask you all to share, but you're welcome to if you want.
Jamie, I have a question.
Yes, Amanda.
So I work for a nonprofit. How should I monetize if revenue isn't really a goal for us?
Yes, that's a great question. So usually you would have some sort of funding target, right, to keep your nonprofit afloat. So if it's not revenue, it might be that funding target of you need, $100,000 a year, or you need whatever the number is. But that would be your target. Great question, Amanda. Yeah, and as a reminder, I'm happy to have things be interactive, so feel free to come off mute. Feel free to put questions in the chat. I'm trying to keep that on the side so I can monitor it. Yeah, and so Elizabeth Strope, my job doesn't produce revenue, but surely there's probably some sort of target aligned with it. By the end of the year, like I said, with nonprofits, it might be the amount of funding you're trying to bring in, or something of that nature. And I have construction going on at my house, so I apologize if you all can hear that. Okay, good. All right, so we've done steps 1, 2, and 3. We've just set our targets. And again, you can go back and think about this some more. I know I'm kind of putting everyone on the spot of set your target, do this, do that. But this is just kind of walk you through all the different steps. So to get into goal setting guidelines. So I said my dad's line was, if you write it down, it will get done. I love this quote too. That's a goal properly set is halfway achieved. So again, we're taking the time to set really intentional goals. And by doing so, you're starting to get forward momentum already. Now, I'm not saying you don't have to do the work to actually accomplish that goal, but it just really emphasizes the importance of setting goals. So here are some guidelines. Goals are how an individual or organization can strategically accomplish initiatives to deliver on your mission. So again, I think of things like mission, vision, values as your anchors, as I mentioned. I think of goals almost as your compass. What directions are you going in? You could go in a ton of different directions and do a ton of different goals, but maybe just set a couple really intentional ones and you'll move in the right direction, and then you'll have your anchors to keep you grounded. Again, as I've been emphasizing, when goals are documented and updated and reviewed on a regular cadence, the organization and even you as an individual, you have clear priorities. So even for me, when I do this personally, it's really helpful for me to go back to. And I'm not gonna lie to you all, I don't look at my goals every single week. Some people do, and that's fantastic. I say for an organization, it's best to go back and review at least on a quarterly basis, if not monthly. And sometimes I'll do more of a mental checklist for my personal goals. At the end of each week, did I do everything I said I was going to do this week? Or for my weekly goal, which I'll talk about in a minute, and just kind of say yes or no. I'm sure most folks, especially the ones that are more of our experts on goal setting, have heard about SMART and that goals should be SMART. So I define that, and there's sometimes some slightly different language here, but I define it as specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. So for specific, and I'll walk through each of these to give you all some examples. Instead of saying, for personal goal, I want to exercise more. How many of us say that, especially January after the holidays, I'm going to exercise more. Well, that's not very specific. It's hard, and it's also hard to measure, which is the second one, M. But if you said instead, I'm going to go for a walk every weekday morning, or I'm going to do yoga 3 times a week, that's very specific. And it's still, yes, you're exercising more, but it's really specific about how you're exercising more, right? So again, with measurable, if I say I'm going to go to yoga 3 times a week, well then on Sunday evening or Monday, whenever I'm saying that week happens, I can literally go back and say, did I do yoga 3 times this week? Yeah, I did. Okay, great. I accomplished that goal this week. Let's keep it going, keep the momentum moving. In addition, with measurement, this can get really, really complicated. So, if I have any marketing folks on the line, there's lots of different things that you can measure with analytics. There's obviously lots of different demographics and all sorts of things that you can measure. So it's great if you can put some of those measurements in place. So for instance, if you said, I'm going to grow my email subscriber list by X% by the end of 2021, that's a really specific goal. And that's something you can measure. You can go into MailChimp, or you can go into Constant Contact, or whatever email program you use, and actually see, have you been able to accomplish that goal? But then, like I said, sometimes it's more of, is this done? Did I do this goal? Did I do yoga 3 times this week? And those are okay too. Attainable. So this one is really tricky. A, attainable. You need to keep goals in the realm of possibility. But you also don't want to set so many goals that are easy that you can just say, oh yeah, I accomplished that. That was no problem. So there's a really delicate balance of, are you setting a goal that's, a little bit of a stretch, but that isn't so, insane that you won't be able to accomplish it ever. And sometimes you might want to think about goals in bite-sized pieces. So we talk about this a lot with clients of, okay, what can you feasibly say that you can accomplish in 1 year from now? Okay, but then what about 3 years or 5 years? So you can think about some of those longer term goals and then break them down into more bite-sized pieces. So that's really important with attainable. Relevant. So the best way, in my opinion, to make sure that your goals are relevant is exactly what we had talked about before. Do they tie back to your mission, vision, values? Do they help you achieve your target, whether it's a revenue target or funding, whatever that target is that you set for yourself? That's how you know if your goal is relevant. If it doesn't answer that question, you probably shouldn't be setting that as a goal then. So that's really important. And then time-based, to me, that's really similar to specific. You want to put time around it. So you would want to say, by the end of Q1 2021, or by the end of 2021, I want to accomplish X. So just putting that time, or again, going back to my yoga example, each week, that's time-based. There's a time associated with that. So those are the guidelines. Any questions on that before I continue? Okay. So while I just went through all of the SMART pieces, I do love this quote from the Harvard Business Review, which says, a goal can easily be smart without being wise, which is exactly right. So when you think about setting your goals, a lot of times people just say, oh, well, they did this, this, and this. And, so it's a SMART goal, but it's not actually helping you achieve your business results. So that's why that R, that relevant one, is so important, because you want to be really thoughtful about the goals you're setting. Are they helping you achieve your mission? Are they tying back to your revenue target? If not, again, they're probably not a wise goal. So I like to include that caveat just because I think it's important. So now we're going to move into the actual goal setting exercises now that I've set up all of the guidelines. So again, you've heard me say this example before. This is before I get into the goal itself. Here's just a nice framework. This is something that I found works really well for me. Again, Amanda shared out the PowerPoint. Some folks that I've shared this with, they say, oh yeah, this is great, but I put it into Trello. because that's how they keep themselves organized, or another software system, or, oh, I put it into an Excel, Google spreadsheet, that works really well for me. Or some folks, I'm kind of like this too, you can see all the books behind me, love paper. So some people want to write it in a notebook. That's great too. The most important thing, honestly, with goal setting is making sure that it's written down somewhere that you're actually going to look at it and pay attention to it. So if that's on your computer, you know, your personal laptop, your work laptop, great. Just make sure that it's written somewhere and in some format that makes sense to you. And then that will really make you much more successful. So again, this is the framework I use that I like. It has at the top, you know, what is the goal? It has the why. So again, relevant. Why are we even doing this? It has an action plan, which we're not going to spend too much time on action plans today. That's going to be sort of your homework as you leave. So you can set a goal, but then there's a lot of steps sometimes that you need to achieve that goal. So, you know, if you're running a marathon, like that might be a goal for 2021 for you. Certainly is not for me. I actually hate running, but that might be a goal for you. But you're not just going to wake up on January 1st and be able to run that marathon. There's a lot that you're going to have to do to prepare in order to do that. So that's where that action plan comes into place. The measurement, again, that's M, measure. So how are you going to know that you accomplished your goal? And then I really like this last column a lot, which is progress. So for me, I really like to use the terms meeting expectations, exceeding expectations, or not meeting expectations. And if you're not meeting expectations, that's okay. But if you keep doing that repeatedly, then maybe you should revise your goal. And that's okay too. That's part of the reason why I encourage people to look at your goals, you know, at least quarterly, if not monthly, if not weekly for some folks. Because that's where you know, hey, this goal I set, it really wasn't attainable and I'm not gonna be able to do it, or it really doesn't fulfill my mission. And I'll share an example of that with you in a minute, of a goal I set before that I'm like, nope, this isn't gonna happen. I'm not ever gonna be able to meet expectations. So that's that progress. Oops. Another fun way to measure progress, and is something that a previous company I worked with used, is sort of red light, yellow light, green light. So same type of thing, green light, everything's going well. Yellow light, yeah, I'm kind of doing all right. Red light, no, not at all meeting expectations, got to move on. So that's another nice way to measure progress as well. So for me, you know, last year, my personal goal was to attend yoga at least 3 times a week. Why? So I explained here, you know, why I really enjoy doing it. The keeping me mentally balanced has been very important during COVID. My action plan, so that's, you know, how I was able to make sure I got it done. And then my measurement was, have I attended 3 yoga classes each week, 12 a month, and then my progress. So for me, you know, I'll just share personally, I was doing great on this goal at the beginning of 2020. I actually was exceeding expectations when COVID first hit, because I was obviously, like everyone on the call, very stressed out. So I was doing it more and more. Then we moved, I started a new job, and I let this fall flat. And so for probably in August and September, I was like super red light, not meeting expectations. But then I was able to go back to it and reset. So I've just now in the past month been able to get back into this. So that's just something, you know, we all have these moments of success and failure, and that's okay. It's about resetting. And I had to look back at it and be like, is this something that's so important to me? Yes, because it keeps me mentally balanced. It creates strength and flexibility. It is important to me. I want to keep doing it. So I sort of reestablished this goal for myself. So enough sharing for me. I want you all to do this warm-up exercise and think of a personal goal you want to set for yourself for 2021. And yes, Amanda, Bliss Body is awesome. Carly's fantastic. And then Elizabeth asked a question, is the goal better self-care, not specific enough? Yes, so that is correct. It's really not specific enough. That's a really broad goal, so you want to be more specific. At least 5 servings of vegetables and walk 3 times a week for 30 minutes under the action plan. I would list them as separate goals. So I would have the eating veggies and then the walking, because then you can track them separately and measure them separately. Because there might be a week where you do awesome with your walking, but maybe you weren't as good and ate not as many veggies. So yeah, I would definitely list those as 2 separate ones. Great question, Elizabeth. So I'll give everyone, again, a couple minutes, just doing a time check. We're doing pretty good on time. So we'll give everyone a few minutes. And I actually have not done my goal setting for 2021. So I'm going to take this opportunity to do some of that as well. And for those of you who have done goal setting in the past, It's always good to think about, again, what goals worked really well for the past year? Do I want to keep those up? Do I want to change them? Have I been meeting expectations consistently? If so, maybe I make the goal a little bit more difficult to attain. So for me personally, I know I'm going to keep my 3 times a week with yoga, because I thought maybe back in March, February, January of last year, no, I would change that to 5 times a week, but that's just apparently not feasible for me right now. So again, I'll give everyone a couple minutes here. All right. So I will share a couple more of mine that I just wrote down and then open it up for you all to share as well. So for me, in addition to my yoga goal, I want to read more before bed. I've kind of always done that. It helps me sleep better. It's a great way to decompress. I also have gotten into the bad habit of looking at my phone before bed, and that just stresses me out more. So I found with reading, and again, I love my books, as you can see, so reading before bed. So I am setting a goal to read before bed at least 3 times a week. And I'm hopeful that I can get that up to 5 times a week, but we'll see. And then another one is I want to FaceTime more with my sister and her 3 kids. So I'm going to set the goal of doing that once a month on a Sunday. And yeah, as part of my action plan, I'm going to now have to reach out to my sister and say, hey, I want to get this on the calendar. Let's schedule this. Let's get this going. Because it's important to me to see my niece and nephews and be a part of their life, especially during COVID when I can't see them in person. So that's my reasoning and the why behind it, and then some of my personal goals. Does anyone want to share? I realize these are personal, so if you don't want to share, I totally understand. All right, we will move on to the professional goals then. So for professional goals, you see the action plan is very similar, and I have my examples here, so I'll talk you through this. And then you all have the PowerPoint, so you can start doing this on your own. So you want to set your business goal. So what is that? Again, you want this to be SMART. How does this goal tie to my mission, my organization anchors, and my target? What is my action plan? And these are, you can see they're not very well documented or detailed action plans, but it at least gives you the gist of what I was doing. Obviously, I did a lot more to accomplish these goals. What is my measurement? And then what's my progress? So you can see for me, one of my goals moving into 2020, so this was a goal for 2020 for me, was I called 2020, it was going to be my year of growth. And I kind of set that mantra of, yes, it's going to be my year of growth, obviously having no idea that a pandemic was going to hit. But part of that was I really need to build out my digital presence. I need to, I did a great job in 2019 of building out my network, but I didn't do as many speaking activities, and all the folks that I kind of met were friends of friends. So I need to get out there more and do more speaking opportunities. So, I set the goal of participating in at least 2 speaking engagements by the end of 2021. And again, my why was to increase brand awareness, have more clients and engagements. And then also it's really important to me. I like helping people. I want to share the knowledge I have to help other organizations, my sort of mission here, achieve stability, efficiency, and growth. So that was why I wanted to do it. My action plan was, reaching out to different chambers, reaching out to networking groups, reaching out. I got connected with Amanda as a perfect example. And then my measurement was, have I participated in these engagements? So actually, I exceeded expectations for 2020, which was really exciting, and was able to do a couple of different webinars and other speaking engagements. So I probably could have set my goal higher, but I hadn't done any speaking really besides one other event in 2019. And so for me, setting just 2 was a big deal. So that was one of my business goals. Another one of my business goals was to publish 1 blog per quarter. So you heard me say earlier about attainable goals. In 2019, when I was, still setting my goals for that, I said, I'm going to publish 1 blog a month. And that was my goal. And then I very quickly realized that that was not attainable, number one. And also it wasn't really that helpful to my mission or my target. I kind of just set this goal and was like, this isn't helping me to do it once a month. But if I did it quarterly and it was a really thoughtful blog and I was good about promoting it and using it, then it would be helpful. So I ended up changing my goal halfway through 2019 and then moving to 2020 to just say 1 blog per quarter. Again, digital, being a leader in that digital space was really important to me in 2020. So kind of helping me grow my brand awareness. And then for me, I hate doing sales. Honestly, that's a great reason that I am now part of an organization. I don't do the business development. Someone else does. I just manage the client relationships. Because sales is just not something that necessarily comes naturally to me. But I like, again, helping people and reaching out in authentic ways. So having a blog, I would publish it and I'd reach back out to all my clients that I worked with the previous year, or maybe even that I was currently working with, and say, hey, I just published this. I thought you might find it helpful. And it often would be a great way to do some business development. Because then they'd, I would stay top of mind. Same thing on social media. I mean, we all scroll through social media, but the algorithms are set up so that I might post something and people might not see it. So posting a lot with really quality content is a great way. I know this isn't a digital marketing workshop, but doing that is a great way to get your brand awareness out there. And so I also, as I mentioned, was an English major. Writing is really important to me, and it's a great way for me to flex that muscle, is writing blogs. So for me, I was like, all right, here's my action plan. I'm going to do this. I didn't always follow the action plan, but I have published all of my blogs so far, although I'll say for Q4, I haven't written it yet. That's actually on my to-do list to do this weekend. But I am going to write a blog for the diversity movement about, you all might see in my Zoom, it says she, her. So I'm writing a blog about the importance of pronouns and why we do that. That's actually something that's come up a lot with my clients. And so I'm going to be writing a blog about that, and that will be published before the end of the year. So I will have been able to accomplish my goals for 2020. So that, again, is sort of the framework and me sharing a couple of my goals that I had for 2020. So now I want you all, shocker, to do that for yourselves. And again, I know you're not going to be able to get through all of this. We don't have a ton of time left together, but I do want you to take a few minutes, maybe even just at the 1 goal. One other thing that I didn't mention is you saw on this, yes, Amy, I was just about to say, you saw on this worksheet here and on the sample, there aren't a ton of rows. That's intentional. You don't want to set too many goals for yourself. I like to say, and for me in the past, I found it works really well, set about 4, maybe 5 really intentional business goals. So what's something that I'm actually going to be able to, what are goals that I'm actually going to be able to achieve in the next year? So if you do too many, you're not going to be able to accomplish it. So pick the ones that are most important to what you're doing. Again, last year for me, it was all about that brand awareness, building my reputation. So that's why I had the blog writing, I had the speaking engagements, and I had, I think, 2 other ones that I'm totally blanking on right now that I didn't list. But yeah, I would say about 4 to 5 for business, and then, maybe a handful for personal as well. So I'll give everyone a few minutes to kind of think through this, and then we'll open it up if folks want to share. And again, I'm going to take this opportunity to write down some of my professional goals and business goals.
Jamie, while you're writing, we have a question. Do you prioritize the goals, or do they all carry equal weight?
Yeah, so great question, Amy. I do generally like to prioritize. For me, I almost have like a must do, should do, nice to do mentality about most things that I'm approaching. So I'll put my most important business goal at the very top. And that's the one that I'm going to look at first. I'm going to see if I'm measuring against first. But again, you want to make sure that they're all important and relevant. Otherwise, you shouldn't really set it as a goal. Great question. Everyone another minute or so, just kind of get some thoughts down. Again, I know you won't be able to get to all of it right now. All right. So I'll just share again, I'm doing organization or goal setting next week with my organization. So we're going to be talking more about that. But for me, one of my goals is when I started the diversity movement, I told my boss, the CEO, I want to be able to basically practice what I preach. So I've been doing this organizational strategy consulting, and now I want to make sure that everything that I've been telling my clients to do works in a real life basis. So for me, I want to be able to set the goal for 2021 of have we continued to revisit our organization anchors each quarter? Have we set these goals and been able to revisit them and accurately track progress against it? So for me, that's one of my goals going into 2021. To ensure that our business continues to be successful. Does anyone else want to share one of their business goals for 2021? Either in the chat or feel free to come off mute.
I was going to share, I have just recently been trying to work with more subcontractors, and I have my own business and have worked independently for almost 10 years. And so that's a goal for 2021, is to continue onboarding subcontractors and deepening that bench some.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And do you have Amy, a goal of how many you're trying to reach by the end of 2021?
No, not yet.
Something to think about to make sure that it's a smart goal. But
That's
otherwise,
right.
that goal. That's great.
Realistic is my problem.
Yeah, for sure. And I see in the chat, first paid organizational health consulting client. That's great. 1 to 3. Yeah. And that's fine. You can leave that open. Again, that it's being specific. So if you reach between 1 to 3, then that's great. I see Elizabeth wants to improve facilitation and presentation skills, which is good. Again, Elizabeth, just like I said to Amy, try and think about, improving. How are you going to be able to measure that? Are you going to go to different classes, or really kind of think through that action plan for that one in particular and how you might measure that? How at the end of 2021 will you know that you've become better at facilitating and presenting? For Scott, our organizational goal is 120 clients per person per year. Yes, again, love how specific that is, right? And that's something you're able to measure at the end of the year. Amy said update the company website. Yes, that's always always a goal for especially solopreneurs, right? So that's great. Awesome. Does anyone else want to share? Okay. So we've talked about steps 1, 2, 3, 4. And 4, again, that's obviously the meat of it, is actually sitting down and setting your goals, thinking through if it's smart. I will say too, again, next week with my organization, I will be facilitating that session. It's always really helpful to have a facilitator. And if you're doing it on your own, that's okay too. But almost try and play a little bit of devil's advocate to yourself. So when you're setting your goals, kind of do what I just did to Amy. So Amy, thank you for letting me ask you questions. But make sure that you're being smart with your goals. So even for like update my company website, okay, is that by the end of 2021? Is that by the end of Q1 2021? How can you make sure that you have that more specific? So as you're setting these goals, that's why a lot of folks do hire consultants like me to come in and help with goal setting, because we do get so kind of focused in of, oh yeah, that's what I mean. But how are you going to measure that? How is it specific? How is it relevant? So, almost if you're setting these for yourself or if you're setting them within your organization, try and play that devil's advocate role a little bit. And then once your goals are set, the most important thing, and actually I forgot that I was sharing this quote first. So again, to play devil's advocate, this is a whole, workshop on goal setting. You came to this because goal setting is important to you or something you want to learn more about. And I like to include this because it is important. So James Clear, who, has anyone read, put in the chat, his book, Atomic Habits? It's an awesome book. He also has this really cool newsletter called 321. Yeah, I see Elizabeth's read it. And his newsletter is great. We all get so much email. His is the one that I consistently read every week because it's, and I actually just read it before this workshop. It's 3 ideas, 2 quotes, and 1 question. And it's free and you can sign up for it. So he has some really great content. But he says goals are good for setting a direction, but systems are best for making progress, right? And so again, you all could have come to this session today. You all, started setting your goals, but that's only steps 1 through 4. So you have to actually start putting systems in place to ensure that your goals get accomplished. So as your homework today, what I want you to do is finish documenting the goals from today's workshop and create more of those detailed action plans and processes. So create those systems for how you're going to achieve those goals. I know we did this in a compressed time period, so you didn't get the chance to think through that action plan. So I really want you, before the end of the year, set a goal for yourself before the end of the year, finish documenting your goals for 2021. And again, we shared this framework with you. If you find it helpful, great. If you don't, you're like, or if you don't like the branding of it, whatever, make it your own, put it in a journal, put it on, again, Trello or something like that. Make it your own, make it something that you actually will look at though. I always say this, don't just write it down and put it in a drawer somewhere, make sure they're actually looking at it. But that's sort of my goal for you all is leave today, finish documenting these goals, create your detailed action plans. And then, as I said, it's really, really important to review your progress against those goals. And again, I like monthly, at least quarterly. Sometimes, some folks do it weekly, like with my yoga one, I do think about it mentally weekly. I do like, and I did this for myself when I was a solopreneur, because it's hard to hold ourselves accountable. I'm sure there are other solopreneurs on the phone or on the line today. So I would actually schedule a monthly calendar reminder. I think I did it Thursday mornings to look at my goals, because otherwise I might forget. And so that was a way to hold myself accountable for actually looking at these and not just sticking them in a drawer. And I've had some other folks too, where they meet up with other solopreneurs and they talk about their goals. And so it's a great way to have accountability. If you're within an organization, as I know many of you on the call are, making sure that you set aside time. Most of us have team meetings on a weekly basis, bi-weekly, monthly, something. Use a few minutes of that meeting each month, each quarter, to actually go back and look at the goals that you set and see what that progress is. Because again, what's the point of setting goals if you're not actually going to ever look back at them? And then again, I highlight here, make adjustments if you need to. That's okay. Again, I had with my one client, I remember doing this last fall, and I said, set your revenue target. try and set it so it's something that's achievable, but a little bit of a reach. I was like, obviously if there's an economic downturn or something like that, you can't prepare for that. That's okay. We can always shift it if we need to in the future. Well, of course, that's what happened. And so he and I actually joked about it. He's like, yeah, sure didn't see this when I set my revenue target for this year. So, again, we all had to go back in March and April and kind of shift and make adjustments to our goals. That's okay. I think we all hold on to this idea of like, no, once it's written down, I can't change it. There's a reason that I use a pencil, because you can erase it and fix it and change and make some adjustments. So that's perfectly fine. The important thing is that you're thinking about it, you're setting aside time, you're writing it down, you're going back and reviewing it. And I think that was all that I had for you all. I did leave a few minutes at the end. I know some folks asked questions throughout, which is great. But any other questions for me? If not, or even if there are, you can feel free to contact me. I have my website here as well as my email address. Yeah, so if you, Flynn, go to www.stabilimentaops.com. There's, I think if you do /blog, my blogs are there. I have a blog on goal setting. And then if you go to the diversitymovement.com, we have a lot of blogs there. My one from Q2 is up, and the one that I'm writing this weekend will be up soon. How do we get slides? I think, Amanda, we can send out the slide deck to everyone that attended, right?
Yeah, I'll send you the contact information after, Jamie, and you can share those with everyone.
Perfect. And can we share the recording that way as well?
Yes, so I will be posting the recording to our YouTube channel, and that will be the easiest way to access it.
Right. And a question, am I still doing consulting? So this quarter, no, because I've been trying to sort of get things in line with the diversity movement and get up and running with that. I started full time with them October 1st. So I'm really trying to devote myself to that, but always happy to answer questions for folks. Try not to take on any big projects, just because, again, I want to devote my time right now to that, but I'm still keeping Stabilimenta active and alive. I also, if you all go to my website, I do a quarterly newsletter. That was one of my goals for 2020, was to start doing a quarterly newsletter. So feel free, there's a little footer that you can sign up for that newsletter. And in that newsletter, there's usually a little letter from me at the top, and then I share thoughts, which is my blog, work, which is a case study, and then reading. So again, I keep referring to my bookshelf, avid reader, although I will say I've been not as good about it recently, but I always comment on one nonfiction book and a fiction book, or short stories or poetry or something like that. So I have some people that say, I only read your newsletter for the book recommendations, and that's totally cool. So feel free to sign up for that quarterly newsletter as well. And yeah, Paige, thanks for sharing. Thank you for this. It feels good to take a moment to start creating these goals for next year. Exactly. So again, step number 1 is carving out the time, setting a time to do this. Great. Any other questions? All right. Awesome.